back to Genuine Love Podcast, everybody.
Hi, everyone. We are very excited
Yay.
because today we are having a special guest on, our friend Cam McAllister. He has a ministry called Bridge to Israel, and we are interviewing him today.
Yay.
So y'all get to hear all about his ministry. You get to find out how you can follow him, how you can donate, what this ministry is all about.
Yep. And we're really excited. I can't wait. He's
Me
one of my
either.
favorite people. I'm super pumped. Interview with Cam.
Let's do it. Hi, Cam.
Yay!
Hey.
Cameron's here. I mean, Cam's here.
Cam is here.
It's me. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Aw.
Love your show.
Oh, that's so
Thanks.
nice.
Thanks for being on the podcast. I know Jensen and I are sharing a mic right now. So we're trying to navigate this whole
We're
situation.
cheek to cheek.
It's contentious.
Yeah,
y'all.
I don't... Well, okay.
We have thought a lot. All right, so we have Cam today, and he's going to be talking about his ministry, Bridge to Israel. I know a little bit about it. Jensen knows more about it than I do.
I know more about it than either of
I was
them.
about to
Yeah.
say, you should be the one to explain it, though, since you are the
Yeah,
person.
I'll probably get to that.
yeah, we'll see. Why don't you start just by introducing yourself, and you can tell about how you know me and Jensen and like how awesome we are
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
true.
if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Cam. It's short for Cameron, but there's another Cameron McAllister that some of your listeners may know that I'm not him, so I'm Cam. But yeah, I know Virginia and Jensen from our church, Mars Hill Community Church. I actually know Jensen for longer than that.
It's
We
okay.
had some
It's okay.
mutual
That's
friends
fine.
back in the day, but long story and irrelevant. But anyway,
I would like to hear it.
Yeah, that's going to be
It's
the
a
next
different podcast.
different episode.
Different episode.
I actually know.
Coming clean. Just kidding. No, it's not really anything. Yeah, they're really good friends from church. And what else am I supposed to say about y'all?
That's about it. And so,
And I'm a really big fan.
Oh, that's
Aw,
really nice.
so sweet.
Have you listened to every single episode?
No,
Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
I'm a
sounds like
marginally decent fan. I've listened to most episodes.
Well, that's nice. I mean, that's...
They're all on my TiVo.
All right, we'll take it. All right, so why don't you tell us about your ministry, Bridge to Israel? I just think it sounds super interesting, and we'd love for our listeners to know more about it and eventually through the podcast learn how they could get involved. So let's start with that. Tell
Sure.
us about Bridge to Israel and how you got started, why you got started.
Okay, so this is going to be like super loaded. The main goal of Bridge to Israel is to better connect the kingdom of God in Israel and the kingdom of God in America. So basically, I want to connect the Messianic congregation, the Messianic community in Israel, basically Jews that believe Jesus is the Messiah, to the American church. And obviously, there's a lot of general love and support towards Israel amongst the American church, and I've even got some figures I can share. But I feel like there's not a lot of understanding, or there's not a lot of, hate to say this, but maybe conviction about it. Like there's like, it's maybe inherited views or inherited like a sensibility or something like that. Of course, there's a lot of Christian tourism in Israel from America, but there's not a lot of meaningful connections that take place. So I want to kind of shift that and make meaningful connections and provide good opportunities to grow that support.
Could you tell the listeners what is important about connecting Messianic Jews to people in America? Like where does America fit into that?
Scripture's full of commands and really promises about the importance of blessing Israel and supporting Israel. At the beginning, the Abrahamic covenant, if you go back to Genesis 12, I will bless them that bless you and curse those that curse you, and on the shall all the nations of earth be blessed. So, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but scripture to me is not like they said that, but now it's kind of I'm going to take that as still active and present command. As far as the American church goes, really just the church, but I'm an American, and so I feel like I have to speak to my people. It all comes down to Jesus and who Jesus was, and Jesus was a Jew, and all of the disciples were Jews. The early church was all Jews, Jewish people, and there's a lot of undeniable roots to our faith that are Jewish. Not even talking about like going back to the beginning to Abraham and that far back. Just the fact that Christ himself was a Jew is like a prompt enough to know that there's something to this, like who is Jesus? Don't we want to know who Jesus was? Well, good place to start was with his Judaism. I mean, I think it's was it Matthew 25, he calls the Jewish people his brethren. He never said that about Gentiles. So it was important to Jesus. You know, he was celebrating the Jewish holidays. He was going to Jerusalem for Sukkot. He was in the synagogue on Sabbath. He was studying the Torah. He was doing all of the things that, you know, a Jewish person would do. Of course, he was a little more advanced.
Just a little.
But but even going back to the Torah, like the Torah anticipated the need for a savior. So like our whole basis for like our identity in Christ, who we are as believers, who we are as the church, is rooted in these promises and these covenants that were given to Jews that we've benefited from. And Romans 15:27 talks about how since we've benefited spiritually from them, we kind of owe it to Israel to bless them. I feel like that's a verse that I didn't really, I guess anytime that I ever read Romans, I kind of, you know, there's so much that you kind of breeze through, not really understanding. But I mean, Romans is just rich with how we're supposed to bless Israel, how we have a duty to Israel. Even going back to Romans 1, you know, to the Jew first and also to the Greek or the Gentile. If you break that down, the word first, there can be some arguments as to like what that means, whether it means kind of sequentially first. And some people will argue, well, the Jews already received the gospel because, you know, Jesus was a Jew and the early church was Jewish, which, yeah, that's not wrong, but it doesn't mean that like, oh, they had their chance, you know, our duty's done. The dominant meaning of the word proton, the Greek word for first, isn't sequentially, it's more primarily. And it's not to say that like, oh, well, Jews primarily need the gospel and then Gentiles. It's not even saying that. It's saying that like the groundwork was already laid for Jews. They've already had so much revealed to them. They've already had these promises. They've already had the Torah. They've already had prophecies about the Messiah. And so they should know first. Yeah. And it's not like they get like first dibs or anything. I mean, the gospel is for everyone, of course. But it also says, I think in, Romans 2:9, that judgment also goes to the Jew first. So, I mean,
they're his chosen people.
Exactly. They're set apart. They're not right. Better. Much of the world has very strong opinions about Israel, one way or another. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with like hurt feelings over like, oh, well, they think they're chosen. Well, like they are chosen.
They are chosen.
They don't think they're better. They think they were set apart for a purpose.
And the thing is too, like when Jesus came, it made it where Jews and Gentiles can become Christians and be believers. But he does protect Israel, and you can see even the way he's protected them. Like what was it? The Jews were taken out of Israel for a long time, and it became.
It was mandatory Palestine was the British name,
and now they're back in Israel, and they never thought that would happen, right? Am I right about that? And so even the way in prophecies in the Bible pointing to Israel.
Amos 8, Ezekiel, pretty much all of Ezekiel, some of it is still, I think, to be fulfilled. But 37, they talk about the return of Israel to its land. And I mean, essentially, there's always been kind of a remnant there, even when it was largely Palestinian. But And I don't want to even get too much into like the politics of it because I think too many people, Christian or otherwise, get hung up on that. I mean, I don't think many of the target listeners of this specific episode of this podcast are probably going to...
They come to us for their political...
Right. They're not going to like write me and be like, no, this is how I feel about Palestine. But the two things to remember as someone that supports Israel, as someone that's a believer or whatever, is Jesus died for everyone, you know? And we want everyone to have the gospel, whether they're Jewish, Arab, Norwegian, Greenlandic. Do you know that's the demonym for Greenland? It's Greenlandic.
Greenland. I was going to say, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's fun fact.
That's another episode. A talk on
Greenland. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to your ministry and tell us more. So you link Messianic Jews to Christian or churches. Is it churches in America?
Yeah, that's the goal. So it's kind of multifaceted and it's still new. So I'm still kind of feeling out the opportunities, and of course COVID has kind of put everything a little on pause or maybe had to refocus things. But I think a lot of it's going to be, for lack of a better word, kind of educating. So whether that's through speaking opportunities or through writing or who knows what tools God will kind of equip me with at some point. But I would love to kind of travel around and just kind of talk about Israel, talk about ways we can bless Israel as we're called to, you know. I think a big part of that will be in promoting trips to Israel, but also preparing people that are planning to go to Israel. So like if, you know, a lot of churches will allow for opportunity, like a Holy Land tour, such as our church did a couple years ago. And I would love to just like, hey, let's meet for an hour, hour and a half, 10 hours, whatever it takes beforehand, and just show you why I think it's important to have a certain mindset when you're going to Israel. Because when you go, and Neither of y'all have been, right?
No.
Well, you have to go.
Oh.
I'm requiring it.
Okay.
We'll go on the next trip, right?
To remain
Yeah.
friends with you, we have to
To
go
remain
Israel.
friends with me,
Gotcha.
you have to go. It's, for lack of a better word, and I know I've already said for lack of a better word several times by now, so I
That's
need
okay.
to get a new idiom. It's super romantic. It's not like, like
Cameron
Love.
just hugged himself.
yeah, I just hugged myself. I know y'all could feel that in my voice. It's romantic. As a Christian, you've read about all these places. You've probably seen a lot of pictures, like whatever. But you're there, and you're just like, first of all, there's a very real like magnetism to Israel. I saw a quote from Elie Wiesel. He was a Holocaust survivor who wrote Night and Fog, I think, were his two books. Anyway, he said, one doesn't go to Jerusalem, one returns from Jerusalem. And that's super true. I mean, it's true of all of Israel, but it's very easy to be swept up in the romanticism of Israel as a believer. And there's something about, the Sea of Galilee, and there's something about the Dead Sea, and there's something about Mount Carmel, and just all these places that you're going to go and you're going to see. And you're just like, the history and the spirituality of them, I mean, it's tangible. Like, you feel it, At the same time, if you're on this nice cush tour bus for 10 days or however long your trip is, air conditioned, the hotels are really nice. At least, I mean, I've never stayed at a bad hotel in Israel. You're eating really good food. You're learning so much from your tour guide. Hopefully you're there with other believers, and you're maybe reading Bible passages in the places that they happened in. It's very easy to just have the experience of your life, and I fully recommend that, and I'm not knocking that at all. But it's super easy getting swept up in that and being blind to the fact that, yeah, this is where our faith was founded. This is where our Savior came from. And yet it's now one of the least Christian countries in the world. Yeshua is basically a dirty word there. It's something that's not spoken of. And if it is, it's like, no, stay away from that. I think this is probably a point for later, but there's so much about Jesus that seems like a threat to Jewish people, to their identity as Jews. So that even though the modern nation of Israel and so many Jews there are benefiting from America's love for that, and America's tourism, and America, not just America, the whole world. There's millions from all over the world that are traveling there. They're benefiting from it kind of in the name of Jesus. It's still, there's a divide there. It's a shame that so many believers are there constantly, and yet there's so few believers there.
Like living there.
Living there, yeah. There's about the last count that I saw, there's about maybe 9.5 million people living in Israel, and there's about 225,000 professing Christians.
Wow.
Only about 25,000 of those are Jewish believers. The other 200,000 are Arab Christians.
Interesting. So is the ministry for support for these people, because they're, I would think, pretty lonely as Christians over there?
Yeah. I feel like there's such an opportunity if there's, 1 million plus Christian tourists to Israel every year, and there's 25,000, not to not support the Arab Christians, but let's just look at the 25,000 number there, which is such a just tiny fraction of the population of Israel. Okay, so let's say there's 1 million Christians coming to Israel every year. There's 25,000 Jewish Christians. How many of this 1 million are even thinking about, considering, meeting with, praying for, visiting? Just it's so easy to be in this bubble, this romanticism, just being there and then going home and just having the trip of your life. But there's no real connection. There's no real opportunity that was made.
That's such a good point, though, because if I were to go to Israel, I wouldn't go thinking, oh, I'm going to go minister to people.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you'd be
As
like,
a mission trip or something.
yeah,
Right, and
I'm
it
gonna
doesn't
go see
have
where
to
Jesus
be.
walked. Which is fine.
Yeah,
but
totally.
like, I would never have even thought, like,
Right.
oh,
Me either.
there's a lot of people here who don't know Jesus.
But being in that bubble, you don't realize that you're in one of the least Christian countries in the world.
Right.
And I think, maybe the numbers are growing, but for going back to that about Jewish identity, like there's plenty of Messianic Jews, Jewish believers who believe Jesus is the Messiah, who are told that, well, you're not a Jew anymore if this is what you believe. And Judaism is super complex. First of all, it's like 6,000 years old. Stuff that's that old is like complex. And it's, it's ethnic, it's cultural, it's religious. And each one of those is kind of a different spectrum. So you can be 100% ethnic Jewish. You don't follow religious Judaism at all. And then culturally, maybe you celebrate the holidays, maybe you eat kosher some of the time, but every one of those is like at a different point. And so your identity, your Jewish identity, is not going to be the same as your neighbor or your mom or your son, whatever. But because it's so personal to each one of them, and because Jews as a people over the 5,700, 6,000 years, whatever, course of their existence have been through a lot. I think we can all agree on that. To be told that, oh, well, you're not a Jew because you believe in Yeshua as the Messiah is tough. I mean, that's persecution. And that comes with the territory. I mean, Jesus warned us of that. So there is a sense of isolation to be a Messianic Jew. Jewish believers better understand that Jewish identity so that they can witness better. It's an important to mention that, like, going on this trip, it doesn't have to be a mission trip. And even if you were on a mission trip to Israel, I feel like if you're going out on the street preaching in another country to people with a very complex identity system, it's probably going to be more fruitful to help equip the people that already understand that better.
Yeah.
So that's why I want this ministry to support the people, the congregations, the ministries that are already there, that are already boots on the ground, that already understand their own people. So kind of better educating my church and my country about their needs and how we can support them, and then equipping them to do the work to grow the kingdom there, but building a bridge between the two.
So how did you come to start Bridge to Israel? Like, was it a personal experience that you had, or what was it?
So this is going to be the long one, and I've already been long-winded.
No, it's okay.
So I was born on December 4th, 1986.
Starting from the very beginning.
No, I guess it probably does start when I was young. Actually, this is going to sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. Or am I? But when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the movie Aladdin, which y'all may know it's not a Jewish film.
What?
Right.
Been living my whole life.
It's very pan Middle Eastern and also South Asian. They bring a lot of like Indian, Anyway, we're not here to talk about Aladdin. That's another episode.
But we can.
We're getting so many topic ideas from this one episode.
Aladdin.
Talk on Aladdin. No, but I used to, back in the day, because I'm old. Y'all are old too.
What,
It's
3
fine.
years older than us?
I think I'm at least. I think it's like 4 years.
How old are you?
I'm 30. I'm the same age Jesus was when he died. 33.
Yeah, you're 3 years older. Well, 4 years. We're almost 30.
I'll be 30 next March.
Whatever. Anyway,
Doesn't matter.
Blockbuster.
Another episode.
We're still in our 20s. So.
We go to Blockbuster every weekend, and rather than get a new movie, I would just get Aladdin. I don't know why my parents didn't just buy Aladdin. I guess it was like in the vault or something. But I would watch it 3 to 4 times every weekend before we returned it. It's just like what I did. I watched all 77 minutes of Aladdin several times every week. Honestly, it did 2 things. It made me really interested in Middle Eastern culture, even though it was just a cartoon Disney version of it with like talking animals and genies and stuff. I was really disappointed when I got to the Middle East and they were like, no genies, and the animals didn't even talk to me. But it also made me punctual, because this is what I was saying earlier. So when he becomes Prince Ali and he's like trying to impress Jasmine, and she's like on that beautiful balcony, and it's like, wow, the architecture is just incredible of that palace. The genie is like a little bee, and he's like buzzing around. He's like giving him words like, tell her she's beautiful, tell her she's like charming, tell her
Can you
she's
use a voice?
no, tell her she's punctual,
wondering.
and he goes punctual. And I didn't know what punctual meant until like the second time I watched Aladdin, when I asked my dad. I'm like, what does punctual mean? And he told me, which is funny because my dad should not know what punctual means. He's never been punctual a day in his life. Anyway, so Aladdin made me love the Middle East, and it made me punctual. And you can cut all of this out.
No, we're
keeping it
keeping
all.
all of it and taking everything else.
But a talk on Aladdin. When I was 11, my family had a tremendous opportunity to go on one of these kind of Holy Land pilgrimage trips. This was a Greece, Israel, and Turkey trip, and it was a cruise, and it was like this old decommissioned Greek cruise ship that had since been like rendered obsolete by like the giant cruises of the day. This was like 1998, so this was a while ago. So it was like this gold shag carpet and like wood paneling and like teal velvet furniture everywhere, and it smelled like must and tea. But it was like, the experience of a lifetime, just like being on this like Greek cruise ship and going to Israel from Greece and then Turkey. And so we were only in Israel for 3 days of that whole trip. And it was, it was life changing. You go, and ever since then I kind of felt homesick for Israel after returning, which I think that's pretty standard of a lot of people's experience with Israel. But it really just, did something to me. And really from then on, Israel was more than just like a hobby. It was like there was something deeper like that. I was just not quite obsessed, but it was leaning that way. As I got older, and my face started to change, everyone assumed I was Jewish. Everyone. Like, I was walking through Town Center Mall one day, and this guy goes, "Are you from Israel?" This vendor
What?
at one of the, and I was just like, "Nope."
Wow.
Kept walking, but like, does my face just scream that? Well, now I know that it does because I've heard that so many thousands of times.
When you go to Israel, do you seem to fit it? Like, do they
Yes.
seem to think you're Israeli?
Yes.
Israelian?
Israeli. No, I get stopped by Americans asking me for directions because they think I'm a local.
That's so
I
funny.
I try and like if I go to a coffee shop and I order, and I have like a favorite coffee shop. Its name is Aroma, and I know where all of them are. I'll try and like greet them because my Hebrew's still like very early on. And then it's like, okay, now we're speaking in English because I can't continue this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, they're like, no, but your face.
But
I
your
will
face.
continue
But your
to speak.
face.
Yeah, I will continue to speak to you in Hebrew. I mean, I went to the same Christian school from kindergarten to graduation, and like people that had known me for years would be like, "Are you Jewish?" I'm like, "You've gone to church." Like, I didn't understand it, but I just like, okay, I'm
My husband gets asked the same thing.
yeah, and he
Often.
does. Look,
We do think you may be related.
they,
So
yeah, right.
we'll have to figure that out.
My husband doesn't look Jewish.
No, not at all.
No. But I remember, are y'all familiar with Amy Carmichael?
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it? She had the little brother who had, or no, her whole family had like blue eyes
yeah,
and
blonde
like
hair.
fair skin, blonde hair. And she had brown eyes and dark hair. And
She was short.
she got called to be a missionary in India,
Mm-hmm.
in British India. I'm not even sure when she lived. Early 1900s? Sure.
Sounds about right.
But anyway, where the village that she was at, of course it was illegal to be a Christian. But you'll understand why I'm bringing her up. But she, at one point when they were like raiding the village and looking for any Christians or whatever, she used tea to dye her skin. And because she already had dark hair and dark eyes, they just assumed she was Indian. And now it was like, oh, now she sees why God made her look so different from her family or whatever. And I look like I'm related to my family for the most part. Completely. I look like my family. Well, my brother and I don't really look alike. But they don't look as Jewish as I do. That's the point.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like hearing that so often, like, only fueled like if I look like, it just like made me more interested in something I was already very interested in. Anyway, cut to like many years later, I always kind of missed Israel, longed to return. Started working in the film industry, which... there's just a whole lot to say on that that's completely irrelevant. But basically through God taking me through that job, he basically allowed me specific finances right when our church, Mars Hill Community Church, was planning an Israel trip. And I was like, I'm there. Take my money. This is the only opportunity I've had since, I first went in 1998 when I was a kid and I wasn't even paying. Like, let's go. And it was like a few months away from being 20 years from when I went. So it was like, oh, cool. 20 years later, I'm returning. Yeah. So anyway, I was able to go with this church in June of 2018 through just like complete God's providence. Like, there was no reason that I should have been except he wanted me to go there. And so there were 35 people on this trip, and I and our pastor's wife, Dana, were the only two of the 35 that had been before. And of course, it had been 20 years ago, and it was only 3 days, and I was 11. But yet, I was so familiar. I'm so, learned about the culture and everything. God just burst that bubble that I could see everyone else being in, like rightfully so. It's super easy to be in and, not knocking it. But for me, I was watching everyone be there and enjoy the moment, and I was having the time of my life. It was incredible, but I had such a burden because if you're staying in someone's house and while they're gone, and you don't want to leave it a mess, right? You want to leave it the way you found it. And that's kind of what we're doing as Christians when we go there. We're just kind of enjoying it and getting our time there and seeing where Jesus walked, and that's all good things, but why are we leaving this the way we found it? Shouldn't we leave it closer to Jesus than when we found it, And so I just had this deep burden, and I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew God was doing something. We would meet as a church, like when we would have downtime at the hotel, we'd get back from whatever we were seeing that day, say at 4, and then say, hey, let's meet up at 6 outside, and we'll put chairs in a circle, and then we'll go to dinner together. and we would just, talk about like what, God's doing to us. And it was just like, it was such a tender time for me. Like, and I wasn't used to that. I mean, these were all strangers that I didn't really know. I knew our pastor. I didn't really know anyone else. And I was experiencing something, a calling, but also being there for a second time. It was just like something, I was just like really sensitive. I was really just kind of going through something, and it was kind of evident, I could tell they were like seeing something, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know what it is either, But it started right then. I mean, it was like that's when the calling started. And it was only in the weeks and months afterwards that several people that have been really influential in my spiritual walk, my mom, my pastor, several people they connected me with, some friends of mine that are also involved in ministries to Jewish people. He really kind of brought it into focus. Our pastor, Tom Gray, connected me to a former boss of his named Jeff Cranford, who's senior pastor at Church at the Red Door in Palm Springs, California. And he's actually on the board of this ministry called One for Israel. They run Israel College of the Bible in Netanya, Israel, which coincidentally was the first place that we stayed when we got to Israel. And I was just like blocks away from the only Hebrew language Christian seminary in the world, but I didn't know it at the time. And if I had known it when I was there, I would have been like knocking on the door, like, hey, let me in, show me around, So anyway, Jeff recommended this book called Reading Moses, Seeing Jesus. And it's about basically the Torah and, the first 5 books of the Bible and the law, how we can see Jesus in that. It just affirmed so much of like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing. And, I'd been working in the film industry for 7 years-ish at that point. It's going on 10 now. I always kind of said, film is one of the biggest mission fields in the world. Hollywood is such a big mission field. It was never my mission field. I totally think it is, but it wasn't a calling that I had to be there. It was just a career. And now I finally had a calling. And it wasn't until you get called that you find out, oh, this is what it feels like, So that summer of 2018, it was just kind of like me figuring stuff out. And I was just so excited. And I was just emailing everyone I could. And I was emailing lots of pastors in Israel and lots of leaders of these like ministries in Israel, these really long English language emails. And I was not getting responses back because I'm writing them in a language that they speak, but they probably don't want to read a book. But also it's like, okay, what are you, because it was just like hey, here's everything I've ever thought about everything and like what I'm going through and like, but God used a film festival in Haifa, which is my favorite city in Israel, that September to allow me to kind of sneak back to Israel and lay some groundwork for the ministry. Cool. So for work purposes, I was going to the Haifa International Film Festival, the largest film festival in the Middle East, but really I was going for this new thing that no one in my career world knew anything about yet. They knew I loved Israel. They didn't know that, I have this new calling and I'm hopefully going to leave y'all behind soon and focus on that. I was able to go back a second time that year, and it really just kind of like, yeah, this feels right. This is what I'm going to be doing. But honestly, that was about 2 years ago now, and it's really only just now, like it's shifted and it's turned and it's been clarified and it's still coming together, and I still have so much to learn. But I definitely know that there's a tremendous need for this, and it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't even remember what your question was.
You answered it.
Yes,
okay, good.
You did
100%.
Good.
So I do have a question. So whenever what does it look like? So you find a church in Israel that wants to be connected to, do you connect a church to a church, or how does it work? Like, what is the process?
Yeah, so I imagine it's going to be kind of looser than that. So right now I have one ministry in Israel that I'm kind of focusing on. Until I grow, I want to just kind of start. I started building this database and started reaching out to all these people and was not getting responses. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'm just going to focus on one. And it's actually kind of what I consider to be my home congregation when I'm in Israel. It's called Bet Eliyahu. It's in Haifa. And it's a wonderful church. And they actually run the only Messianic nursing home, I think, in the whole country.
Real fast, can you tell what Messianic Jew versus Jew is, just in case anybody doesn't understand like what that means?
So Messianic Jew is a Jewish person that believes Jesus, Yeshua, is the Messiah. Mm-hmm. Most Jews are still searching for the Messiah. They think he hasn't come yet. Mm-hmm.
Do they only believe the Torah or the whole Old Testament?
The whole Old Testament, but they also, Judaism is largely, like a lot of the traditions and things that are a part of Judaism today come from the Talmud, which is like rabbinic writings, just years of tradition and extra stuff that's not really biblical. And so honestly, a lot of stuff that's like a key part of Judaism is not biblical at all. It doesn't come from scripture. And it's honestly leads to a lot of kind of idolatry, which I think is a whole nother topic, because we can talk about what idolatry looks like for Judaism, but then also what it looks like in the American church. I have a lot to say about that. But so right now, Bet Eliyahu is the kind of the main congregation, and it's in Haifa, and they run a nursing home. So they've always got needs from the church front and from the senior living front. The most basic way that Bridge to Israel supports them is just a flat, at least 20% of every bit of money that we bring in goes directly to them. At some point, if we add more, then I don't know what it looks like to say, oh, well, you get this month's and you get this month's or whatever. But right now, they're the ones that we're financially focusing on. So far this year, we've been able to donate like around $1,300, which I'm super proud of, because that's a lot of money to me. Yeah. I want to kind of spotlight them. In my next newsletter that's going out, I'm going to talk about like what their current needs are and what's going on with them. And of course, Israel's in the middle of they're kind of easing restrictions again, but they just had like a several week-long lockdown, and so they're doing their services all online, and they actually have an English translation that you can call in if you want to get up at 3 a.m. Eastern on a Saturday morning. Wow. I have a few times, but it's tough. But yeah, yeah. So I want to spotlight them kind of in my day-to-day stuff. But yeah, I want to connect these churches. I want to say like, hey, this church, meet this church. This is their needs. This is how you can pray for them. This is how you can support them financially.
So kind of like sponsor, like this American church sponsors this church.
I would love that. And if that goes through me, then that's great. If they just want to directly kind of funnel support to them, here's how you can do that.
That's cool.
But I also want to, if the need ever arises for short-term mission trip, someone from here wants to spend maybe a week here, and can you use them? How can you use them? What can they be doing? I would love that to be kind of a more long-term thing. Another ministry that is kind of one that I want to be supporting is One for Israel, who published that book that was so affirming to my calling, but also the Israel College of the Bible that they run. They do so much. They make lots of YouTube videos of testimonies of Jews that have come to know Christ, and they put them on YouTube, and they're extraordinary. You can watch them. They have subtitles, but so many Jews are searching for Yeshua on YouTube because they can't ask someone about it. They're going to be persecuted. They're going to be shamed, but they can, in the comfort of their own home and their private browser, they can search for Jesus and maybe watch this video and hear the good news. And so they're really doing a lot. And they have different pre-COVID, they have different benefit dinners across the country, but I've noticed they've never had one in Atlanta. So it's kind of my goal to one day maybe be the foot soldier in Atlanta that can kind of make that happen for them. Cool. Or any way that I can support them, really. But a big part is also on these trips, I want to help plan trips for churches or private groups that want to go. Anyone that wants to go to Israel, I want to help them get there, and I want to make these trips a little different than what they're going to get from a normal travel agent planning for them. I want to put in opportunities, like I was saying, the first night that we stayed in Israel, we were in Netanya, which is a beautiful city. It's northern Israel along the coast. It's got these 100+ foot cliffs going into the Mediterranean Sea. They call it the Israeli Riviera. It's just gorgeous. Great first kind of night there, just walk around, see the sunset over the Mediterranean. But we were blocks away from Israel College of the Bible, and so okay, well, if I'm planning a trip and we're staying in Netanya the first night, I'm going to write Israel College of the Bible and say, hey, can you be open for an hour-long tour to this group that they have the means to go to Israel? They might have an interest in supporting you if they know more about your ministry.
Yeah.
The next day when we're in Haifa, hey, we've got an hour in between lunch and going to see where, the site where Elijah, slayed the prophets of Baal. Maybe we can stop by Bet Eliyahu and see their church, or maybe Pastor Shmuel can come talk to us at the restaurant that we're eating at. I want to put in these opportunities so there are these meaningful connections that even if it's an optional thing, maybe we're already checked into the hotel in Netanya, and maybe, hey, we're making the bus available if anyone wants to go tour. We've got this going on at 7 p.m. Maybe there's only 5 people out of every 35 person trip that want to go, but that's 5 people now that are seeing how God's moving in that ministry, that maybe are praying for them, maybe they're supporting them financially, maybe that are telling their friends about them, maybe that are signing up to take classes online themselves, But if that opportunity doesn't exist, then those 5 people aren't connected. And even if it's 5, like, what if it's all 35? Like, who knows? And it could just be doing it could be so fruitful to just have these little meaningful connections programmed into a trip that has, I mean, honestly, when you're in Israel, you have plenty of downtime. You're not,
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing a lot, depending on how the trip is planned. You're seeing a lot, but you're also resting a lot. You're relaxing. I mean, it's you come back rejuvenated, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want us to be leaving it the way we found it. I want us to be seeing who we need to see and knowing who we need to pray for, and just having opportunities that we can kind of connect. You know, the kingdom of God shouldn't be disconnected, right? Yeah. So I want to directly support and connect here and there, and I think the most effective way to do that is probably going to be through these trips, because so many of them are happening, I mean, in a non-COVID world. But yeah, I also want to be directly connecting congregations and ministries.
That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
So would I be wrong to assume that there's not a ton of like missionaries? I mean, I know there's like the seminary you're talking about, or the college.
Right.
But is it wrong to assume there's not a ton of missionaries over there? Because you hear about missionaries going to all these other countries, but I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody going to Israel to be a missionary, or not even just a missionary, but like you're saying, to go talk to them about Jesus. And maybe it's because it's more intimidating, because they do seem to have like, a lot of them do seem to be firm in their faith.
Right. Yeah.
Is that right? Or
Yeah,
are there missionaries over there? Like,
I would say yes, kind of two points to that. One is that maybe Israel doesn't seem like it needs Jesus to many people as bad as it does. I mean, everyone needs Jesus super bad, right?
you just assume it's a religious over there, right?
Exactly.
And
well,
whatever that means.
I'm already
You're right.
supporting Israel. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
They don't. I don't need to focus on missions
I
there,
love
right?
Jesus. But...
Yeah. They don't. It's like there's already so much association with Jesus and Israel in the American Christian mind that it's not as much a need. It's just like something that exists. We're like, no. It's a need. Like, no, it's a need. But also, I think there's more of because there's less of the association with like Jesus and Palestinian need for Jesus. A lot of American missions are focused on, serving Palestinians and witnessing. And if you look at the numbers, there's more Christian Arabs in Israel than there are Christian Jews in Israel. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's not like a ton of, and it's probably a matter of intimidation, B, a matter of like, oh, it's just not a need, right? No, wrong on both fronts. We're not called to be intimidated to witness. So also, I think a lot of the people that are kind of missionaries to Israel, because Israel is a Jewish state. If I was Jewish, and I know I just look Jewish, I'm not actually Jewish. If I applied for citizenship under the law of return, but they knew I was a Christian, that would be a point of contention. So, plenty of Israelis are a-religious. They're not following Judaism as religion. They're ethnically Jewish. They're culturally Jewish, whatever. But if I'm trying to migrate there, it's like but you're a Christian. Even if I was full ethnically Jewish. And so a lot of missionaries that you'll meet in Israel are Jews. They're Messianic Jews that are called to be missionaries to their own people. So a lot of church plants, a lot of pastors that are in Israel are Messianic Jews. There's not a lot of not a lot of Gentiles moving to Israel as missionaries. That would be kind of like you can come here, but moving here would be a little different. I'm sure it's the same with many countries that aren't super open to missionaries, going to China, just be, hey China, I'm a missionary. I want to tell everyone about Jesus. And they'd be like, excuse you? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But of course, there's no problem coming to Israel as a Christian, we'll take your money.
Your money.
Yeah, absolutely. And
look at the Dead Sea.
it is such a weird relationship between Christians and Jews, just in general, because they love our support, but they're very skeptical of what we really want to give them. But oftentimes, are we really trying to give them Jesus? That's the best gift we could give them, right? I mean, but we're giving them our money. How much are we giving them Jesus?
Right. I was just going to say, I just feel like that's really convicting. I mean, and I know not everybody will be called. Everybody is called to different things. Right. But even just thinking about praying for the people over there, or not just viewing them as a touristy place, like you were saying. Like, those are real people in need of Jesus. And there are people who know Jesus over there. But there is that line, like you're talking, because are they disowned a lot of times if they become Messianic Jews? Yeah. So, how do you spread the gospel to your family if they've disowned you? You know, that would be a very lonely place. as a believer, I
Right.
would assume. So yeah, maybe just praying, like, and if there's somebody out there who feels called to pray for them, or if they're called to support,
Right.
or
Right.
I have a couple statistics I wrote down today from a study. I don't even know when the study was done, but I wrote down 3 numbers that were interesting to me. These were all American, evangelicals that were surveyed, and 97% of them had not been to Israel. So only 3% of, let's just say it's a good swath of the American church, only 3% have been to Israel, which, okay, yeah, I mean, Israel, it's expensive to go anywhere out of the country, right? But Israel can be kind of expensive because you are on a Cush tour bus and you are seeing all these sites and you're staying at these hotels and whatever. So I understand that, like, if you're going to Israel, you either have lots of means or God specifically wants you to go for something. If you do have the opportunity, I want to encourage everyone that's listening to go. 72% of those polled said that they wish they knew more about what the Bible teaches about Israel's future. So about Israel, and that's a whole nother episode too, after the Aladdin one, would be, prophecy and Israel's role in the end times. And it's like,
yeah, which is very interesting.
yeah, there's a lot to it.
You can Google it.
Right.
Make
Google
sure
it, and just the first thing you read is exactly
It's
right.
100%
Make
true.
sure, yeah, you're going to a credible source.
But, well, even more than Google, it says 72%, listen to the wording, said they wish they knew more about what the Bible teaches about Israel's future. I wish I knew what the Bible taught
I'm the one that said Google it.
about Israel's future.
Just Google
And I get it,
Look it up online.
especially when it comes to prophecy, the Bible can be kind of like abstruse,
Well,
right?
yeah,
You're
I
like,
meant Google
wait,
in
what?
terms of biblical.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Biblically,
I wasn't
Google.
trying to call you out, but it's interesting because 72%. That's
Yeah,
like
it's
3/4 were like, I don't know what the Bible says about it. Be like, there's plenty of stuff I don't know what the Bible says about it, but like I also know where I can look, right? And
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons too we wanted to have you on here with your ministry, is because I do feel like a lot of people in our generation have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
They have no idea like where Israel fits in,
Right.
other than, oh, that's where Jesus came from.
right.
Or what it means to support Israel.
Yeah,
too.
what it means to support Israel.
Yeah, and then 45%, the last number I have, 45% say the Bible has most influenced their opinions of Israel. So like less than half say the Bible is what influences them most. Like, well, what are they allowing to influence them? The media, friends and family, the air. I mean, sometimes our opinions are formed by absolutely nothing because we're not actually educating ourselves. And but as Christians, we have the Bible. I already rattled off a lot of verses, but read Genesis, read Isaiah, read Romans, read Ephesians, read the Gospels. Like, there's a lot about Israel, and there's a lot in there that's not like hidden nuggets. It's pretty clear about like, hey, this is important,
Yeah.
Our age group specifically, I don't want to use the M word, but millennials.
We're going to have a sting for that when someone says
Right.
that.
Well, and just,
Murr, murr.
I think we need to reclaim millennial as like our actual generation and
Yeah.
not the ones that are the worst that have come after us and are not
They
part of
don't-
our
they
generation.
don't
right?
not part of it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, our generation, there's a huge gap in kind of understanding, and so I definitely want to kind of meet them where they're at and kind of do what I can to kind of extrapolate what needs to be extrapolated about Israel from.
You should start putting out more
Scriptures.
educational resources.
Yes, I actually
Have you done that and I've missed it?
No, but
Okay, I didn't want you to
that's
be like,
something
"No, I'll
that
do that."
that's something. So my website needs a lot of work, and I am working on it. But I'm going to have a resource page where I'm going to post lots of books that I highly recommend, including Reading Moses Seeing Jesus.
I want to go read that now.
I have copies. I'm going to give both of y'all copies.
Oh,
so you can
really?
read them. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'll make sure I get a link on my website ASAP so people can buy it. Lots of books, lots of articles, lots of just links to other people that probably say what I'm trying to say a lot more concisely, a lot more well. But yeah, that's definitely something that I want to be a resource. If I can't be anything else, I can be a resource for people.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So how can people find you? Like if they want to support you in your ministry, what's the best way to do that?
The website is bridgetoisrael.org. That's bridge spelled like bridge.
Yeah.
T-O, Israel spelled like Israel.
Right.
.org. Fun fact, one of my first AOL screen names back, like, I think this was probably, I made it in 1998, right after I went to Israel, was Israel Blue 86, but I spelled Israel wrong, and it was Israel Blue. I put the E before the A. Israel Blue. But like I was that kid that had a word in his screen name that he was so proud of spelled wrong.
Oh,
That's not still my instant messenger name for anyone that's trying to
where
find
can
me.
they IM you?
Right. Also on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's Bridge to Israel, but the number 2, because T.O. was taken.
Oh,
Just like Cameron McAllister.
jeez.
Is
And they're
someone out to
taking
get you?
everything from you.
They're taking
your
everything
name,
from me,
your
yeah.
ministry
It's probably
name.
it's probably Cameron McAllister
It
that
probably
took
is.
Bridge
That
to
took
Israel.
that.
Yeah.
I bet it is.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna get him.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
that's it.
And you
That's it.
can email me at cam@bridgetoisrael.org.
Yeah, so if you listen to this and you're kind of like feeling stirred about supporting Israel, whether it's through prayer or supporting Cam or looking into it yourself, go do it. Go do it, girls and boys. I'm leaving that in. Don't worry.
I can
Don't worry.
confirm she has her hand on her
I
head.
do
right
have
now.
my hand
Go
on
do
it.
it.
Well,
She
I'm
just told you what to
excited.
do.
I'm excited now. Like, I'm excited to read the book and stuff.
Thanks so much for being here.
No, thank y'all for having me. I mean, this was my first speaking opportunity for the ministry. So
Oh,
You
honored.
can email his agent if you're another
Yeah.
podcast
Right.
out there and want to have him on.
my agent's email address is cam@bridgetoisrael.org.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
I meant to have a word from our sponsors. Great Value Purified Drinking Water, and just hydrate or dihydrate, and also No Raisins Trail Mix.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious. No raisins.
Where can they find that?
That's the tagline.
At bridgetoisrael.org.
All right, guys. Well,
Okay, well, we will see you next week.